Hi, I'm Addie, and this is Over a Cup of Coffee with Jamie and Addie. Welcome to our new season, Season 3. We're excited to have you here and look forward to having a big, vibrant conversation today.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and welcome to Season 3 of Over a Cup of Coffee with Jamie and Addie. We've had a bit of, just a little break through the holidays, but we're ready to start back with Season 3. And so today it is just Addie and I talking about a subject I think we all have at one time in our life, and that is change.
Change, yeah.
And not so much things like resolutions or
or goal setting or things like that.
Not so much goal setting, but change in that change sometimes happens to us because we cause change to happen and we're looking for change in our life, but then also how we react to change that we're not looking for, that just happens to us. So anyway, welcome to Season 3. We'll get into this topic in a minute. But Addie,
Hi.
Always so good to be doing our podcast.
I know. It feels good to be back. And I'm so happy that Greg is still with us going into, we're calling it Season 3. It's year 3.
Yep.
It's all the big number 3 for us. And it's exciting. And we've had a few months off. And got to spend some big life and go through some changes. That's right. Which piqued the subject.
That's right.
How are you?
I'm good. It's a great time for me in my chamber in the professional world of the Farmington Chamber of Commerce because it's a slow season. And so it's a great time for me to get reconnected with things, organize myself, get my calendar straight for the year. So it feels good to have a little bit of breathing space. And so that's great. Family's good. Life is good. And that's funny because I almost, as I'm saying it, I'm in my head going, knock on wood. Do you know have you ever had that where everything's just going along fine and you're like, things are great. And then all of a sudden, change happens. And it can be, again, something that you
anticipate or did not.
So, and how are you?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm really good. Yeah. So this time of year is for my professional world, for the hotel, can be very busy or very slow. And we've experienced not a good balance of both of those for these first 2 months of the year. Okay. So we've either been so busy that we feel like we're not able to keep up, or we've been so slow that we're scared.
Right.
And it's just the nature of the beast.
Right.
It's the industries that travel to our area. It's the slow time of year for some of those industries, and we've had some big changes here in our community with our power plant closing. So that did cause a little bit of a slow down for us too in the hospitality world.
Right.
But we're regrouping and being creative, and I've met some people that I didn't know I would ever meet because I needed to be creative with my business and fill in some gaps. And
that's fun.
And so that's been fun. It's been fun to get out because I've spent the last 3 years kind of working from inside the hotel.
Right.
And so to be able to get out and do what I do, which is go meet people, I go make new friends, I go build those relationships. Yeah. And a couple of the places that I visited the last few weeks, I walked in and I had like high school reunions, whether it was my own high school reunion or my son's high school reunion. There were people running these businesses or owning these businesses that we both grew up with. And so one of them, I watched him and a couple of the other boys, young men, grow up all together with my son. So it was really exciting to have an official business conversation with them.
Yeah, the official business. And for our listeners, our podcast listeners, we are in Farmington, New Mexico. So we are in the northwest corner of the state of New Mexico in a community that's roughly about 45,000 in Farmington. But then we have some outlying communities and the county itself is about 100,000. So I think when you're talking about getting to go visit businesses and seeing these people that your son grew up with and different things, that's one great thing about a smaller,
the community,
very tightly knit community is those relationships and my husband and I realize we've lived down in Farmington now for 25 years.
Oh, yeah, it's
and
your home.
Yeah, I know. Now it really is.
You don't get to say you're from somewhere else now.
No, we can't because we've actually been in Farmington 25 years. So that was kind of, wow, that went fast in some ways.
Yeah.
But love Farmington, love what I do. I'm the CEO of the Farmington Chamber of Commerce, and I was just talking to somebody this morning and saying, I wonder if when I was in college, I went to Fort Lewis College, if somebody, when I was, deciding what my major was going to be, if somebody had said, oh, well, you would be great at running a Chamber of Commerce, I would have said, I don't even know what that is. I don't know what that is. What's a Chamber of Commerce?
Especially at 18 years old.
Yeah, at 18 years old, you really don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think I've really landed in a great position as far as my career and uses all my best skills and things like that. And so I feel like very fortunate in that because I had a great career before the chamber, but I really love what I do.
This encompasses who you are.
Right.
Like you've done such a phenomenal job, and especially through a hard time.
But I don't think I ever would have seen myself here.
Right.
So that in that topic of change, where you begin to be asked to make decisions about your life, your adult life, pretty early in high school. And
Very early,
I feel like it's good to give kids an idea of what options are available. But I do think it's hard for
without any life
teenagers.
experience.
Right.
They haven't had any real outside real world experience. And especially, I think about growing up here and being very much in a bubble and not knowing what the bigger picture is.
Right.
And because I know for me, having those conversations in high school, everybody thought I was going to be a nurse.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
Wow.
I'm like...
Well, you did say, though, when we were talking before the Women's Summit, that you had thought about going to medical school.
Yep. I always wanted to be a doctor. That was always on my scope from the time that I was 5 years old forward. But, okay, so, and my medical friends will probably hate me for this, but I didn't want to be a nurse because they have to do all the hard work.
Well,
they get into the gore and the guts and the bodily fluids that I can't deal with. And with a doctor, I can walk in my pretty white jacket and I can look at your paper and I can say, okay, this, and this. And
I'm guessing there will be some medical professionals reaching out to you after this podcast. Just saying, I didn't say it, everybody. Addie said it.
I said it.
I know everybody's a hard worker.
That was my skewed vision as a child. I know very differently now.
But we would not have been in the places we are, you career-wise, myself career-wise, here in Farmington, had we not made changes. And I was reading a book recently. It's a fiction novel, but they talk about change. And with change, it's positive when we instigate it. But when it comes upon us and we don't feel in control, then it becomes a negative and a stressor.
A scary place.
But the reality is, it's always happening all the time. And in this book, they were saying that we would all be a lot happier if we just accepted that nothing is permanent.
Right.
And that is true.
It's so true.
But yet we don't like to think that, but nothing is permanent. And so the minute I think, oh, everything's just going along, that's when,
so many things are going to find their way in.
There's that law of motion about things will continue on in a forward motion unless, hit by all these other forces. And that's change. And sometimes we look for it and we embrace it and we're ready for it.
Right.
And, I know I've talked to people that say, I'm just so ready for a change. And other times we really don't want it, whether it's a health issue. I have a friend who today is finishing her last round of chemotherapy. And that was a physical change that she didn't want, but it happened. And she has had to go through this whole process. And I'm sure there's been some changes, not just physically, but also emotionally and in her faith and spiritually. And that sometimes those changes, and we've all had them where we didn't want it, they also cause, there can be some gifts and some lessons from those changes if we will be open to them.
If we embrace them, exactly. Yeah, and on that, I have a friend that we've been friends since we were in 7th grade, and she and her husband had to make the choice to start hospice.
Oh, wow.
She's been struggling with ovarian cancer for the last, it's been over 3 years now. So, so I feel, feel very much for them in what's going on right now. And they've got a little boy, and they live in Texas. So anybody listening, keep them in their prayers because they had to make a really tough decision this week.
And that is the big ultimate change.
It's huge.
That we're all going to face at some time. And And then there are the changes, like I wore this shirt today on the lighter side.
Pretty.
You can see it has lots of flowers because there is a change coming with the seasons, and it will, at some point, winter will end.
Fall, spring will stick around to be real spring.
Yes, exactly. Fall, spring. And so the seasons will change, and winter will change into spring, and those are the changes we're all comfortable with because
we know
the cycle of life. So those are coming, and we anticipate those, and we look forward to them. But I think a reaction to change, because you can't change.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So
you because if you fight it because you don't want it,
right,
then it makes life a lot harder.
It does.
And not just for you. There's those ripple effects that it ripples out to everybody in your world, that it affects when you fight those changes that may need to come, may need to happen. Exactly. I've gone through divorces. I've gone through marriages that, both directions I didn't want, one way or another, but it had to happen. I recently moved. That's something that we talked about the other day over coffee, and the growing pains that I had leading up to it. It wasn't something that was on my radar. I had not planned on moving from the home I was in, and had been for quite a few years now. But I had an opportunity present itself that made a whole lot of sense for my next kind of 3 to 5 year plan. And so I made a quick decision and jumped on it. But I was able to make a quick decision because I trust these people. I respect them. I knew what I was getting into. So if it had been a stranger that I didn't know that said, "Hey, I've got this deal for you," I would have taken more time to make the decision. Right. But because I know her and I trust her and value her, that she's not going to lead me astray in this huge change, I jumped on it. But because I also really wasn't anticipating making a move, I had to open doors in my house that I hadn't opened in a long time.
Right.
Namely my garage and my basement. And there were multiple lifetimes of things that I knew I had gotten rid of in the prior move when I sold my home prior to this one. But I didn't get rid of as much as I thought I got rid of until I started digging through these boxes and closets and realizing that anything that I didn't want to deal with, I tucked away and let it gather dust wherever it landed and left it and never went back to it again. And going through, it wasn't even going through the motions. I had to prepare myself emotionally and spiritually to walk through some of those doors in that house to get myself ready to move to the new house, because there were boxes of things from one of my marriages that didn't feel good. Right. It didn't feel good. I had to see a name that I don't like to even speak of. I had to go through paperwork of a lifetime that hurt a lot. And I couldn't have done it 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I would have called her and said, "Never mind. Give your house to somebody else. I can't do it. This is too much for me to handle." And so I was really proud with how much work I've put in on myself to get to where I am in this moment, because I've worked hard. I've worked really hard to repair the things that hurt and repair the things that hold me back. Right. Whether it's fear of change, because that's a big piece, and this was also one of the first moves in my whole lifetime that I wasn't either moving with a husband or a boyfriend or depending on some sort of a man to make everything happen.
It was all Addie.
It was all me. And bless my son's heart. I mean, man, he's so amazing. He had a plan, and he made me follow that plan, and he executed that plan. And so the things that I didn't think of, like Alec just was on top of it. And when it came the day to move the big pieces of furniture, he was right there, and it was him and I. It was just him and I. And it was so huge for even our relationship and our growth. And I couldn't be more proud of both of us from where we came.
And that's, you had that change that you weren't expecting, and you worked through some things with that. And it really isn't meant to sound simplified, because sometimes change, I know people who have been blindsided by a divorce or by physical issues or losses, and that does not feel good. Or losing a job during COVID. There were a lot of losses.
So much of that. Loss of a business.
Oh my goodness. And just our normal way of life. And a lot of people, I know, I was feeling like I was going through this process. That change was put upon all of us, and none of us wanted it.
No.
So that is a perfect example of, it's not to minimize the emotions or the stress that you deal with, but also to look at change, and it is going to happen. It is inevitable. Nothing is permanent. And so how do you in a healthy way, embrace it and work through it?
Right.
And come out learning some lessons and stronger rather than resisting it, because the whether you wanted it or not, it's there.
It's going to happen.
And so it's learning how to, and it's okay to be upset about it. And even to vent about it and be angry.
Holy cow,
but you can't stay
so many
there.
times. Yeah.
You can't stay in that place forever, or else you won't ever move beyond it and into what could be waiting for you on the other side of that change.
Right.
So I think those are, it's, healthy ways to react to change and to what could be coming. And it's easy for me to sit here and say that right now because everything's just going along so steady. But I mean, but I have had those times in my life when change just kind of came out like a lightning bolt, and when there were changes I didn't want, and it took some time. It's not instantaneous. And so we know there are people out there who are going through big changes that they didn't want. And we just want them to know we're thinking of you. But this kind of ties into what our topic was for the Women's Summit with, reinventing or reimagining yourself, because that is also inviting change into your life, whether it's
being open to it,
personal or physical or career or family or just learning a new skill. Those are also part of what we've talked about with reimagining and reinventing. And so change can be a really great thing.
Yeah,
usually is a good thing.
It really is. Yeah, and you did bring up the physical part of change is I know that there's a lot of people who started off, this is the January, I'm gonna I'm gonna lose weight, I'm gonna get back into the gym, and I've we've both been on a healthier path over the last year, for sure. And I'm down 33 pounds from last year.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks. And I'm keeping it off because I've learned how to change my habits, which I already knew. But just like with my drinking, I had to understand where my problematic areas and times of the day or night were, and what triggered me, and what was just not beneficial to what my goals were. And now I have quite a few women that are doing this with me, and whether we're near each other or far away, they're checking in, and they're like, okay, and our watches, we've all got our Apple Watch, and we're all synced up, and so it tells us when somebody finishes a workout, or when somebody gets their stand goal done for the day, or whatever it is, and so we get to celebrate each other. And and I'm watching one of my girlfriends in particular, I'm watching her body change, and I know, the pushback she has with me is that she's not seeing it, and she's watching the scale. And I told you before we started, I threw my scale away in the move because I'm done watching that scale. It made me crazy. And so, but I hadn't seen her in a few weeks, and I saw her on Super Bowl Sunday, and I just wanted to touch her because her body composition is changing, and it's very obvious that it's changing, and she's working so hard. Sometimes she's doing 2 good exercises a day, and she's eating differently, and she's being conscious of all of those things, and it's so fun to watch, and because I've never had anybody that needed it as much as I needed it.
But sometimes with physical changes, those can be, they can cause stress or anxiety or even friction in a relationship, because if it can feel like if one person is doing healthy habits, exercising, and the other person in the relationship or the family or friends are not. So that can, that change can cause, even though this is a welcome change, this is something she's working on, and overall it's going to benefit her. But it causes sometimes emotions with other people, or why you are doing some of the unhealthy habits. Why are you doing that? And again, so there's some change there of you know, it's a good thing, but yet change is always like that. Because you're usually giving something up when you make a change. Whether it's like you with your move, you gave up where you were before and the space you had and things like that. So change.
And that was a great big comfort zone.
It can be very positive, but there's always something that's probably being left behind with that change. And so, I don't know. It's just an interesting thing we're not in the new year. Well, we kind of are. We're in February, which is still pretty new in terms of the year. Yeah. But there's always that something that's left behind with the change, good or bad.
Right. Yeah. Right. Whether it's a friendship that's lost due to the change or a transition in what that looks like. I've known couples that one of them had weight loss surgery and lost a whole bunch of weight, and the other one didn't change and wouldn't and refused to, and the marriage fell apart. And you know, and then I also have other friends who one of them did do the weight loss surgery, the other one finally 3 or 4 years later decided to do it, and they're thriving in their marriage. And not that they weren't before, but they both were just uncomfortable,
right?
And you know, and so it's just, you're right, there's something, be ready for something to be lost.
Be ready, right. And again, sometimes it's the thing that needed to be lost. And then I think there are people that are constantly looking for change all the time. And then that's another thing.
And that's kind of that's a red flag. And what are you running from in your life?
Right. When you're, because I do know people that they're like doing this and doing that, and they're changing this, and then they're changing, and then they're moving, and then they're having another job. And it's
they're on another trip. But I'm like, how are you going on so many trips?
Yeah. So there's something to that too, where if you're doing that, like you said, what is it about your life that you're not
wanting to deal with
because and you keep trying to put this change in, and so
that's an easy one to get into too, and especially like because I have the ability to travel a lot for work if I want to, and there was a time in my early days of hotel work that I traveled a lot, and I really controlled that more than my company controlled that, and I was gone as often as I could, but I was running from the marriage I was unhappy in, and any opportunity I got to book it out of town, I was gone. And that was, I know, the only way I survived some of those years, but and now I don't want to escape from anything because I've created a life that feels so good to me, and I enjoy all the people that are in my space, and when I don't, I make changes, and you know, and
positive
changes, and I don't ghost anybody ever. I do usually let somebody know if I have to let them go. These are the reasons, and
that's not easy to do.
It's not easy to do, but
especially
it's so
if you're
important.
The one who's, like you said, there's always somebody left.
I'm really sorry, but you don't get access to me anymore.
The honest conversations can be difficult. But so anyway, we just thought with coming back into or coming into a new season, and we have no idea. We're in February again, pretty new to the year, 2023. What changes are waiting for us in this year? And in 2022, you know, I had no idea that our son and his wife, our daughter-in-law, and our 2 grandchildren would be moving from North Carolina into our home. I mean, that was a huge change, massive. Not just for my husband and I. We've been empty nesters for a long time, but also for them. I could have, if we had had this conversation and somebody had told me that change would be coming, I would have, you know, never believed it. Right. So we didn't anticipate that change. Neither did they. And then since then, they have found a place to live in Colorado, and so they have then moved
They're still
out.
Close enough to see each other, but
very close, much closer than North Carolina.
Right.
So that was a huge change that I couldn't have foreseen, and it was so welcome, and we were so excited. But there were times that change also was challenging for both sets of families because we, as I said, have been empty nesters, and here we had a 2 and a 4-year-old with us again, and while we loved every minute of it, we had to make some changes in our life. And we loved it, but we had to make some changes in our routine, how we cleaned up the house. We had to put the locks back on the cabinet doors.
Missed the toilets. Should have put locks on those toilets.
Should have put locks on the toilets. That's right. On my watch, which is another story, got flushed down the toilet. But anyway, it's another story for another time. but also just our dinner time routine. And I realized when my husband and I were raising our kids, we always had dinner at the table. And when we raised our kids, it was the wonderful time before cell phones. So nobody had a cell phone at the table. We were all unplugged, right? And then, as so often happens, our kids moved out. They grew up, they moved out, and we got into the habit of just grabbing a little plate of cheese and crackers and dinner and just sitting in front of the television watching TV. But when our grandkids moved in and our son and daughter-in-law, we were like, nope, we're going back to the table, the family dinner, because we thought this is just as important nowadays to our grandkids as it was when we were, had our own children at home. So we changed our routine and we stopped doing that, and we had dinners together as a family, and just those sort of subtle changes in routine, but yet it was great. I loved it.
It felt good,
and now they've moved out, and what have we done? We've gravitated back towards the table. Well, but every so often we do
like sitting at the table. I sit at the table every night, even though it's me by myself.
And that was such a positive thing. And so anyway, changes, whether they're expected or unexpected, positive or negative, they usually have something there that you can be grateful for. And I did a study on gratitude towards the end of last year, and one of the lessons I learned is that there's always something to be grateful for. And if we can find that piece, even if everything is a disaster,
going to hell around you,
there is something to be grateful for. If you can find that and be thankful and recognize it, or reach out to somebody and thank them for the role they've played in your life, even if something horrible has happened to you, but you have people that are there reaching out to you or bringing you meals. Make that phone call or text, thank them. But that study in gratitude, I think, can help when changes are happening that we don't want, because we can always just sort of lock back down on, you know what, I still have this that I'm so grateful for. And there's, always something. There's always something.
Yeah, especially, even if you take it to as simply as, hey, I woke up today. I am grateful for that. Because we don't always know.
We don't.
You can close your eyes tonight and not know. Like that's like the first thing. Thank you, God. we're
I think
awake,
just
we're
being
here.
thankful. Many things we take for granted. Every time we flip on the electric switch, that our electricity comes on. That I have. Every time I need clean water.
Start on my car.
I turn on the faucet. And we're living with things that some people in some countries, that is not something that they know that they'll have every day.
Well, and where we are regionally, we are a border town to a reservation, and a Native American reservation, and there are still locations out there where people live with no running water and dirt floors. And, a lot of the country, a lot of the world has no idea that we have that just in our backyard here.
Well, my son living in Mexico. Our youngest son. He lives in an area very different than where he grew up, and just the things we take for granted, like the plumbing. But so I think if you can just find that thing, even if a lot's happening and change, just find that piece that you can be grateful for and kind of learn about gratitude, study gratitude, because I think that can help a lot with your outlook. And then when you have the positive changes that come your way, the ones you planned for, maybe it's a career move or physical changes, healthy
things
changes,
that are working out for you,
and they're going your way, be grateful for those too. And help
remember
others
to take
make
a
change.
moment in all of that to find gratitude in it, because we do move very fast.
We do.
We're always doing something or attaching ourselves to the next thing, or work is always demanding, or this or that. If you've got kids that have busy schedules, I always try to find time in my day to stop and really look around, whether I'm standing in the middle of my living room and just circling and looking, that, oh my gosh, I'm here and I have all of this.
And there were some times when you didn't think you would. So I'm grateful for you, Addie.
I'm grateful for you too,
I'm
Jamie,
grateful
so
for this
much.
cup of coffee.
Yes.
I'm grateful that we're in season 3 of this podcast and that we still have people that are encouraging us. If you're listening to us, welcome to Over a Cup of Coffee. We hope that you will continue to listen. And if you're watching us on Facebook, we love you guys. And
don't forget Greg.
And Greg.
Grateful for
and we
Greg
love Greg
Allen
too.
for producing
our show. We couldn't do this for Greg without Greg.
Without Greg, yes.
We couldn't do it without you, Greg.
No.
And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with our special guests, Mark Fetzer and Jared Slindy. They are back from their big old row across the ocean.
Yeah,
and so we're going to have a
excited to hear
follow-up
from them.
podcast with them. So we look forward to seeing you next time.